Hi there, it's Meg, and I just want to help you out to think about what you could be doing to prepare for self-sufficiency, self-reliance. Shit's getting real out there. You guys who haven't fallen asleep and become totally brainwashed will realize that, you know, for the people who are like you and me, if you're watching this, we're not going to take the vaccine. We're going to get ostracized. We're going to get locked out of participating in the normal economy. They probably will try to starve us because that's the way totalitarian governments have done it all over the world throughout history. And, you know, it makes sense to at least start preparing for that scenario. I hope it doesn't happen, but, you know, you'd be a damn fool if you are awake, you don't try to do something to look after yourself and feed your family, right? So I just want to go over a few options that you might be able to do right now and easy ways to prepare and provide food for yourself and your family and your basic needs. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is food, and we have some basic food requirements as human beings, right? We need, for example, orange food like pumpkin, sweet potato, carrots, and we need green food. We need some greens in our diet. So a really easy way I have found of doing that, and let me just get this around. Hang on, how do I do that? A really easy way I've found to provide both orange and green food in a way that's super easy to grow in my climate, which is a Mediterranean climate, is sweet potato. So you can see I've got sweet potato everywhere. It makes a good ground cover. You can actually eat the young shoots. I actually feed this to my rabbits as well. They really like it. My chickens don't, but my rabbits love sweet potato greens. So you can eat the greens, and per square foot of ground, it is the highest yielding agricultural plant that humans have ever known. The actual yield of sweet potatoes in the ground here will be very, very high. So we can dig them out as we need them, and then they'll replace themselves. So I don't know the exact amount that you'd need to feed your family, but you know, you need, if I was you and I didn't have some alternative in place, I would be planting sweet potato right now all over the place, you know, everywhere. I'd just be sheet mulching, putting in some manure of some kind, and, you know, mulching it over. You can grow sweet potato quite readily from plants that you grow. Sorry, you can grow it quite readily from plants that you get. You can grow sweet potato really easily from actual sweet potatoes you buy at the shops. And you can also buy it, they also grow it from the, just cutting off the excess parts that you know, just trimming them off and chucking that in the ground with a few nodes. That will grow as well. Now it does like a fairly warm position, but it is tolerant to drought conditions, and it's fairly tolerant to frost. If you got frost in your area, I'd put it in a sun-facing area with rocks around to keep it warm at night, and out of the frost areas, so not in low-lying areas. You know, other things that grow readily, things like different kinds of kale, they can often end up taking over the place. So here's another kind of sweet potato. A friend gave me some cuttings off hers, and you know, I just threw them all on the ground, put a bit of soil over the top and a bit of mulch, which was just some old dried branches and things which I'd weeded out of my garden, and just watered it, and now it's coming up, right? So that's a different variety of sweet potato. Just put in as many different varieties as you can get hold of, the sweet potatoes in your shop, and you know, swap with each other. They haven't been GMO'd as far as I know, so it should be fairly safe. Now we've just about finished our pumpkin crop because we're in the southern hemisphere here. So, you know, you can plant pumpkins. Don't do what I did and put two varieties together, because you'll end up with, a lot of them will end up being crosses between the two, because they could do cross-pollinate. So, you know, just grow one kind try to get open pollinated seeds, and they like manure. So I've got my chickens over there, and I scraped out their bedding in their pen, and used that as my basis. This whole mound here is stuff I dug out of the chook pen, and it's very, very fertile, and it's grown lots and lots and lots of pumpkin. So that's pretty cool. Now this is another really good plant in my situation. It's Russian kale. Now Russian kale is amazing. It's very high nutrition, but also, you know, it comes up by itself. It self-seeds, and that's what you want in a permaculture garden, in one that's going to support you and your family. You want self-seeding to be going on year in, year out, and you know, your vegetables will just get them self-established and go for it. So you need tough plants. You know, I've tried growing broccoli. I've tried growing you know, things like Brussels sprouts and things like that. Unfortunately, the bugs love them, and you don't end up with any for yourself. So don't bother with things that are high maintenance and need a lot of chemicals to keep them going. Russian kale, definitely a good one. A good source, has just as much nutritional value as cabbage and broccoli, or pretty much as much. And I have made some really cool sauerkraut and kimchi with that. So it makes great sauerkraut. It's a great way to store your excess product. On that note, to prepare, you should also get yourself a good supply of salt. There's a reason why they used to pay the Roman soldiers in salt, and that's why our wages are called a salary, because it used to be paid in salt. You know, you will need it for preserving food, smoking food, drying meats and things like that. Now I want to talk a little bit about chickens while we're here. Now I have chickens. I've got Isa Browns, very high yielding chickens. Now because they're high yielding and they lay every single day, they also need lots and lots of very high quality food, and I don't think these guys are going to have what it takes to see us through any kind of apocalyptic situation, because, you know, where am I going to find this high quality food, you know, when we are denied access to the shops? You know, that's all imported from stuff that's been grown out on large broad acres. You know, I have tried growing food for my chickens before, where I sowed, you know, seeds like the stuff they eat onto pasture areas, and you know, have had this huge big area of high yielding wheat and all sorts of stuff coming up, and let my chickens in there, and they eat the whole lot in a matter of a week or two. It's like I would need my whole 5 acres turned into chicken food to be able to feed these guys. So if you want to know how to grow chickens in a sustainable way, where you're not having to rely too much on outside sources of food, then I would suggest you go back to you know, the small bantam kind of birds that are good foragers, like the little game birds, and you know, those kind of bantam birds that are, you know, agile little critters that like digging and scratching, even mongrels and crossbreed bantams, and realize that you're only going to get eggs during spring and summer, because there's no way a bird on natural forage can give you an egg every day. It's the equivalent of a woman giving birth to a baby every day. That's a huge nutritional load on them. That's why these purpose-bred Isa Browns and Highlines only live to be 3 or 4 years old. They get clapped out even with the best food. So they're not sustainable in a self-sufficiency situation. So you have to go for some of the heritage breeds or crossbreeds. Now, where do I think you should get your food? So your protein sources. So where can you supply yourself with protein? Like, what sources can you use if you're only using heritage, you know, bantams that don't actually lay that much of the year? Where do you get your protein from? There are different options. You know, you can have a cow, for example. You would need a cow to get enough protein. If that was your only source of protein, you would need a cow for each family. Now, most of us can't do that. So what do? You know, you can eat beans and you can eat peas, you can grow broad beans, that sort of thing, but you know, you need massive amounts of them to get the protein needs of the average human. So my solution has been rabbits, and I just want to show you my rabbits here. In Australia, it's a bit harder to keep rabbits than it is other places because our government has introduced viruses, and the viruses are designed to kill rabbits. And so I've got my rabbits set up in a gazebo, mosquito-proof gazebo, to keep them safe from mosquitoes. So I've got a large white, now New Zealand white, not large white, a New Zealand white, that's her there, that's Blossom. Don't name your rabbits like I have. And Satin here is a Satin breed rabbit. Now they're both good breeds. Don't go for giant breeds, just go for the New Zealand white. It's as big as you want to go. I've done a little bit of research online from people who do know about rabbits. Now have a look at the amount of food I have given them. I've been growing these rabbits for about 3 months now, from babies on, I mean, they're from different litters, and she was a bit older. Blossom was a bit older than Satin, so that's why she's bigger, and I think she will end up being bigger than her anyway. But anyway, I've been growing them with just the barest amount of pellets, like only like a tiny little amount of pellets every day, but most of their food has been stuff I have picked for them from my property. Now if you don't have a property, you could go roguing it from around the place. So see, they eat the sweet potatoes, they like weeds, they don't like grass. Hello Satin. They love Tagasasti, so there's a high protein. This is 23% protein, this fresh Tagasasti, and it is a complete rabbit food on its own. So you stay there, Satin. In you go. So yeah, Tagasasti, where do you find that if you haven't already grown it? Luckily, I'm into permaculture, and I planted a whole heap of it around my property. So, you know, they will eat, those two little rabbits will eat that whole amount down to a couple of sticks, which they have even stripped the bark off, in one day. So, you know, they eat a lot. Rabbits eat a lot. I was really surprised how much rabbits eat. But, you know, one female rabbit, of course I have to get a male, but one female rabbit, they reproduce so quickly that she could provide me with a rabbit on the table 50 times a year. One rabbit. So, you know, that would mean a lot of food. I'd probably have to spend hours every day getting that food for them. But, you know, theoretically, we could meet a lot of our protein needs just with these two girls. Satin's going a bit silly. Yeah, just with these two girls, we could meet our protein needs. So, you know, that's pretty cool. And, of course, they've got a lot of fat on them as well. So that would be our fat needs met as well. So rabbits, definitely something to look at. They will eat fairly low quality food and convert it into rabbit meat, and their poo is really cool as well for the garden, and the worms love their poo and all the stuff that comes out the bottom as well. So definitely a goer, rabbits. I'm just going up to show you my Tagasasti plants, because they are pretty integral to my rabbit production here. But while I'm walking up there, I do want to talk about something else that's really important if you want to survive what's coming. And you know, I have no doubt it is coming. I just don't know whether it's going to be next, you know, the end of the year or in 5 years or whatever. You really do need to connect to your local community. And you know, that means, you know, if you used to go to church, and you're lucky enough to have a nice local church, and you stopped going, so maybe it's time to go back. So just for the community side of it, so you can reconnect with others, because nobody is going to get through this on their own. You know, we're fairly well set up here, and you could store a few years worth of stuff, and that will definitely be advisable and helpful in this sort of situation. But to really make it through this, we're going to need each other. We're going to need community. We're going to need interdependence. So, for example, you know, I've got a lot of Tagasasti. Other people might not. I could share my Tagasasti. I could exchange it for milk. I don't have a cow. So, you know, someone else might have bees. And, you know, and then they could trade that. Or what about someone might be good at making alcohol, or, you know, everyone's going to need wine, aren't they? Or beer. What about medicine? We can't do everything on our own. We're going to have to help each other. And, you know, anyone who thinks they can do it on their own, they might be okay for a little while, but in the long run, we all need each other. So, yeah, try to figure out ways of getting community together. Unfortunately, in Australia, we're not a very God-fearing nation, so we don't have a lot of community centered around churches and, you know, where people meet every month without fail and have an opportunity to network with each other. So I don't know how I'm going to do it, but we have to figure out some way where I am to get people together. So if you already have that, you're very lucky. Take advantage of it. So I'll show you my Tagasasti now. So here's Tagasasti. I've grown it from seed. This variety is a weeping variety. It can also be grown as a little tree, and it grows in a wide variety of situations. I've sort of created hedges of it everywhere. So at the moment in this area it's growing in rocky, kind of loamy soil, but it does really like sand. That's its favourite. But even without sand, it's still doing pretty good, right? So the beauty of this plant is it kind of bends down, the weeping one. You can see where I've been cutting stuff off for the rabbits. And it's a fast growing plant. So if you can get yourself, it's called Tagasasti, and see if you can get hold of some of that. Of course, you know, plant it now and you're looking at 2 years before it gets like this, where you can actually keep cutting and cutting and cutting it for your rabbits and stuff. It's also very good fodder for goats and cows and horses. It's high protein, as I said before, 22% protein. It's green in summer when everything else is dry and there's no protein in the feed. Tagasasti is a great feed for animals. Other things you can use instead are things like wattles, like acacias, and as far as shrubs go, of course there's lots of pastures you can grow, which will probably be faster growing. You could grow lucerne, you could grow lupins. These are high protein again. You could sow those now. Clovers, anything like that is high protein. That's good food for rabbits. Over here we've got some Perennial Rye Grass. So that's green in summer. We're coming out of summer into our winter now. Everything's dry, but it's starting to green up. So that's green all year round. It's good food too for any livestock you've got. So we've also got Tipuwana Tipu, which is those beautiful trees here. They've got pods, and their foliage itself also is high protein. This one here is honey locust. Has not performed to the expectations I had for it. Honey locust is supposed to provide carbohydrate rich pods for livestock, but it hasn't done as well here as I hoped it would. There's another one there, the same age as the Tagasasti, sorry, the Tipuwana Tipus, which have definitely done a lot better. So I've also got, you know, lots of, so that one there is a wattle, that one there, starting to flower up there. High protein, again, but short-lived. Now the other thing you got to think about if you want to be self-sufficient, of course, is you need water. You must have water, and you know, if you don't already have an independent supply of water, I suggest you do it right now. Even if you're in the city, you can always put in a rainwater tank, can't you? So definitely get yourself an independent water supply. Now you also need independent power. Now we are at the moment setting ourselves up for standalone power system. We already have a large photovoltaic system on our place, but it all feeds back to the grid at the moment. So, you know, other ways of getting power, you know, the old fashioned wood stove for heating, you know, animals can provide you with, you know, transport and do work for you. So yeah, definitely think about what you're going to do for power, transport, warmth, and all the other things you need, cooking. Yeah, fruit's good, fruit trees are good, but they're not really good for staples. It's really just for fun, a bit of sugar. For sugar you can also get bees. And also you've got to think about medicinal things, like rosemary is good as a all-round antiseptic kind of plant, and you can use it for freshening up, not sterilizing, but at least reducing bacterial contamination. You know, you make it into different compounds, preparations for that. So yeah, herbs, grow a few different herbs as well that grow easily in your place. Now I just wanted to also show you how one of our greens has just become part of our natural environment now. So I think this is a kind of pak choy or bok choy, I'm not sure what, but yeah, it's just self-sown here, and I've just encouraged it over summer because we're going into winter now, but over summer I just gave these self-sown beautiful greens, I just gave them a bit of water when I was watering these garden beds here that I've got in the raised beds, and they're thriving. So something you can grow all year round as well. Carrots, and so yeah, when you grow things, make sure you're using open pollinated, and make sure that you save the seeds, and then you can be really generous with so these are the seeds forming on these carrots here. Now I've been cutting all the greens off my carrots because my rabbits absolutely love the greens, but they don't really like the carrots themselves, so go figure. Bugs Bunny was a bit of a misleading critter. So there's more of those self-sowed greens here. So what do you do about fat? How do you provide your fat needs? So we've talked about greens, we've talked about orange vegetables, we've talked a bit about protein, like your rabbits or your chickens, or having a milking cow, or beans and peas in huge quantities. But what about fat? Fat is a difficult one. You can grow avocados, of course, but the lead time is years. We've got olive trees here, and we've got an olive press. So if the shit hit the fan, we could basically press our own olive oil if we needed to. At the moment I'm just buying it because it's easier. I'm a busy person. Yeah, and I guess the rabbits and eggs and things and milk can also be fat sources, can't they? If you can get yourself, you know, wild caught animals, you can get fat off those. But almonds and things can be fat. We haven't had much luck with those because the parrots get everything where we live. So yeah, I'm not sure about what would be a good source of fat, except for us it's olives. So you have to think about your own situation. Back on the protein side of things, another thing that you might be a bit disgusted to even think about, but you shouldn't totally discount it in my view, because if things get really real, then it's going to be a godsend, is earthworms. Because you can grow earthworms on any organic matter, even the dust out of your vacuum cleaner, old cotton and wool, hair, cardboard, you know, you can convert anything like that, and also your scraps and that into, and poo, they love poo, horse manure, things like that, into a high protein source, which at the very least could be good food for your chickens, for example. So I just want to show you my worm farm here. So I've got it set up in an old bathtub, and we had a carpet over the top there to keep it a bit cooler, because our summers are pretty harsh where we are. So we've got it on a place that gets afternoon shade, and insulated a bit with this wet carpet, and we feed it leftovers, and you know, this is horse manure, and it's absolutely loaded with worms. And the great thing about worms is they provide you with manure for your garden. You can use the worm wee as a fertilizer, and the worms themselves are a good tucker. And now with protein, again, another thing you might want to consider, like snails. You can eat snails, you know, the French eat them. They're good food as well. And you can also use the snails as food for your chickens. Another poultry animal definitely should be considered is ducks. You know, all the old egg laying competitions before the advent of the high lines and special hybrid high laying chicken varieties, they were all won by ducks. And here we're talking about Pecan Ducks. They are really prodigious layers. And then you've also got Muscovy ducks. They lay really well as well, and they also good meat birds, really fast growing. They'll eat grass, they'll eat green grass, and they'll eat snails, and they can convert those things into food for you. So yeah, definitely give ducks a consideration. You know, they are really quite easy to grow. Okay, what we haven't talked about yet is carbohydrates. We all need carbohydrates. Now these are the potatoes. This is how I stored my potatoes from last year. I've got a few trays of them, and I'm going to plant those. It's the beginning of winter where I am now. I know I can grow potatoes without having to water them at all. They will grow over winter for me and be ready to harvest by the time the weather gets harsh and things start to dry out. So yeah, these are the ones from last year. Obviously they're not much good to eat now because they've all sprouted, but that's all right. They are a very good source of an easy to grow source of carbohydrates. So I will be making a little video when I do the planting, so you can see it's very, very easy to grow potatoes, and you should be thinking about that now. So what you're going to need is some sort of manure, and you're going to need some sort of mulch. The mulch could be sawdust, wood chips, hay, straw, even shredded paper, like something. You need something, even lawn clippings, right? So yeah, I'll be planting those tomorrow, and I'll show you how I do it then. It's very easy. So yeah, I just felt compelled to reach out to people who might be having a bit of a panic now. I know those of us who've been sort of pseudo prepping or interested in permaculture for a long time, we might have felt a little bit mad, a little bit crazy for many years, thinking why did we bother? Now it's looking pretty useful to have some systems in place for self-reliance, but that's not going to help people who haven't done anything about it yet. So I thought I wanted to help you out if you're in that boat. The human race will survive this. We know that the powers that be reckon there's too many people on the planet and they want to exterminate us. This is what this is all about. Depopulation, soft kill, World War III on the human race, which most people don't even know we're at war, right? So yeah, I hope you find this helpful. I know it's a bit scattered, but yeah, I hope you got some ideas. Yeah, talking again about connecting with other people. You know, have a look around your local communities and think about what resources are out there. If you haven't looked at permaculture before, you definitely need to study at least some intro permaculture. As an example, you know, we went to a friend's place. She's got horses. She's got poo, horse poo. I will use that for my earthworms. I will use that for my potatoes. I will put that in my chicken pen because the chickens can scratch through it and get the grain out. I can use it to grow earthworms in the chicken pen. It will grow mushrooms for me in the chicken pen. You know, it's bloody worth its weight in gold, right? You know, things like that. What is in your area that you could use to help enrich your property and make it more productive? So think about waste products from, you know, old wheat or straw, manures from feedlots, sawmill dust and sawdust, and of course poo. Poo is gold.